Somewhere in a room you have never been invited into, your name came up, and I need you to understand exactly what happened next. Because it is the single most important thing that has occurred in your life this year. And you weren't even there for it. A small circle of people, the kind who decide things, the kind who sort everyone else into piles. Heard something you said. Maybe a sentence, maybe half a sentence. After silence that lasted a bit too long. One of them finally said what all of them were thinking. This person is dangerous. Now, here is what I promise you before we go one step further. By the end of this message, you will know three things: who that circle really is, why one sentence out of your mouth rattled people who are supposedly above you, and the exact title they accidentally handed you the moment that word left their lips, because dangerous from their mouths is not an insult. It is the highest security clearance they have ever issued, and they issued it to you. So let's flip this whole thing over and look at its belly. You spent a long time believing that the people in charge of the room, of the family, of the office, of the circle simply don't register you. That your word go up like smoke and disappears. That you could say the truest thing anyone said all year and it would land on the carpet and get vacuumed up with the crumbs. That's the story you've been living in. Nobody's real listening. The actual story is the opposite. And it's been the opposite for longer than you know. They heard you first time. The first time. They they heard you every time. The silence that followed your word was never deafness, it was containment. When people don't understand something, they laugh at it. When people fear something, they go quiet around it and talk about it. Later, in smaller rooms with the door shut, you've been mistaking the shut door for indifference. The shut door was the tell. Nobody convenes about noise. They convene about weather. Now let me hand you the picture that's going to carry us through this entire message. Because when it clicks, you're going to feel about 400 years of your own history snap into focus. Centuries ago, the men who drew the maps of the world formed guilds, closed rooms, locked chests of charts, and you have to understand what a map actually was back then. It wasn't a picture, it was power. Whoever owned the map, owned the trade routes, owned the harbors, owned the story of what existed and what didn't, kings paid fortunes for them. Sailors lived died by them. And the guild's entire authority, its whole reason to exist, rested on a fragile promise. The map is correct. Trust the map. Trust us. But the world is bigger than any guild. And every so often, a ship would come limping back into port with a report that didn't fit. A coastline where the chart showed open water. A current no one had drawn. Land actually undeniable. Land rising out of part of the vellum the guild had left smooth and empty. And here is the detail I need you to hold onto with both hands. When the map makers came to the edge of what they could measure, chart, and control. They did not leave it blank. They couldn't bear to. A blank space is an admission, so instead they inked monster into it. Sea serpents, leviathans, great coiled beasts with warning written beneath them. On some of the old charts, the warning was 3 words long. Here be dragons. Not here is nothing. Not here is empty. Here be dragons. Meaning something is out there. We cannot govern it. We cannot predict it. And we are formally advising everyone we control to stay away from it. The dragon on the map was never a description of the territory. It was a confession of the guild's limits, dressed up as a warning. Hold that, because you already feel where this is going, don't you? You're not a citizen of their map. You never were. You're the report that keeps coming back from the water they claimed was empty. Every time you open your mouth and say the plain, unvarnished, lot bearing truth the way only you say it. Another ship docks with news that contradicts the chart, and somewhere in a closed room, someone in the guild feels the volume shift under their hands. Dangerous is simply the modern pronunciation of here be dragons. They didn't insult you. They inked you. They look out the good pen. The one they only use for things they fear, and they drew you onto the map at full size. Now, who is the guild? Let's be honest that I can see into your life, so listen and notice which one of these lands without thought. For some of you, it's at work. That inner ring that forms in every workplace like a pearl around a grain of self interest. The ones who launch together, decide together, and manage the story of whose leadership material. You said something in a meeting once. Something true, something structural, something that named the actual problem instead of the polite decoy problem. And you watched the air pressure change. Nothing was said to you. Plenty was said about you for others. The guilt wears your own last name. A family has its official map too. Who's the golden one? Who's the difficult one? Who gets believed? Whose version of events become canon at every holiday table, and you, at some point, said a true thing at that table, maybe quietly, maybe once, and the family cartographers have been redriving furiously ever since because your one sentence put a coastline through the middle of their favorite ocean. For others, still, it's a social circle, a scene, a friend group, a community, maybe even an online space with unspoken elders who decide what's cool, what's credible, who's allowed, who gets platformed, and who gets quietly rerouted around. You felt the rerouting. You just never got to see the meeting where it was decided. Maybe for you it's older and stranger than any of those. A former circle you already left, an ex's family, a church you outgrew, a friendship cluster from a previous chapter of your life that still, years later, keeps an eye on your coastline. Because people never stop monitoring the territory that escaped them. Or maybe it's newer than you'd guessed, a room you're barely aware of, adjacent to someone who is aware of you, a parent's colleges, a sibling's circle, a rival's dinner table, where you exist as a recurring subject of weather system they track without ever having met the ocean. And for some of you, be still for this one. The elite group isn't made of people you couldn't name at all. It's the gatekeeping layer of life itself. The invisible committee you've always sensed standing between you and your own next level. Stamping papers, losing your file, keeping you in the waiting room. Even that room heard you, especially that room. Whichever one just made the hair on your arms move, that's your guilt. Keep them in mind. You're coming back for them. And before we go further, let's talk about how they've hurt you. Because I know a part of you is doing the math right. Scrolling back through your own memory, trying to locate the sentence. Stop searching for one dramatic moment. That's not how words travel. Words travel like water through stone, slowly, invisibly. And then all at once, the thing you said in a hallway got repeated in a car. The thing you posted at midnight got screenshotted at noon. The thing you told one person, just between us, made it to third person by Thursday, not because you were betrayed necessarily, but because true things are heavy, and people cannot carry heavy things alone. They have to set them down in front of somebody. Your sentence have been getting set down in rooms you never entered for years. You thought you were talking to individuals. You were actually publishing. Every honest thing you ever said has been quietly circulating through the territory like a pamphlet with no author's name on it, until it finally reached the chart room and somebody at that table recognized the handwriting of the war itself. That's when the silence happened. That's when the world was sad. You didn't get discovered this year. You got confirmed. But first we have to vault into the tender part. Because there is a bruise here, and I'm not going to pretend there isn't. Somewhere along the line, probably early, probably younger than anyone should learn this. You were taught that your voice was a liability. Too blunt, too intense, too honest at the wrong moments. You can't just say things like that. So you built the apparatus. You know the one. The pause before speaking where you stand the truth down to a socially survivable shape. The apology stapled to the front of your opinions. This might be dumb, but like a customs declaration for a thought. The rehearsing in the shower of what you should have said. Hours after the room already closed, and beneath all of it, the private conclusion you never said out loud. The problem in every room is me. That's the reaction you provoke. The flinches, the subject changes, the sudden formality are evidence that something in you is miscalibrated and needs to be turned down. You have spent years trying to fix an instrument that was never broken. Because look at what you were actually describing. You speak and rooms react. You name a thing and it can't be unnamed. People remember your sentences years later. You've seen it happen. Someone quoting you back to yourself long after you forgot saying it. You watched a single honest observation of yours outlive an entire meeting's worth of everyone else careful nothing. Turn that evidence over and read the other side of it. That's not miscalibrate the instrument. That is ordnance. That flinch you keep apologizing for is the recoil that every real weapon has. People will say nothing through never real recoil, and nobody schedules a meeting about them either. Your whole life, you interpret You interpreted the reaction as proof you were going wrong. The reactions were proof you were ranging in. A voice that changes the air pressure in a room is not a defect that survive your attempts to fix it. It's a birthright that survive their attempts to zone it. Because that's what the guild has actually been doing all this time. Zoning you. Let me show their side of the desk, briefly, and with more pity than anger, because up close it's smaller than you think. A cat cartographer's entire livelihood is the accuracy of a document he cannot afford to change. Think about the trap. His salary, his seat at the table, his identity, all of it is invested in a specific drawing of the world in which he is central and you are open water. He is not evil. He is leveraged. He has bet everything on the map. So when you speak, when you say the kind of true thing that withdraws coastlines, you are not merely disagreeing with him. You are, without even trying, devaluing his life's collateral in front of witness. And he can't refute you because the territory is on your side. So he does the only move the guild has ever had. He reaches for the monster pen. Difficult, intimidating, a lot. Doesn't play well with others. Dangerous. Every one of those labels is the same three medieval words in a business casual costume. Not one of them describes you. Every one of them describes the exact point where his map ran out and understands the tell inside the tell. The guild does not ink dragons over puddles. There is no chart in history with a sea monster drop over a pond. They reserve the beast for oceans, for territory so vast it could swallow the whole enterprise. So when they gathered in that room and settled on that word for you, they were not measuring your flaws. They were measuring your accurate rage. You should hear this person is dangerous. The way old sailors heard the storm bell. Something real is out there. Now, what's happening in the guild hell these days since the meeting, since the word was said out loud and could never be taken back? Because that word did something to them. And this is the part you don't get to watch. So let me describe it to you. An admission like that has half life inside the people who make it. They said it to dismiss you, but the sentence keeps not working the way dismissals are supposed to work. Dismissals shrink things. This one grew. Now they notice when you're quiet. Your silence read as movements they can't chart. Now every report of you doing well arrives in their harbor like another contradicting survey. And the pile of contradicting surveys is getting harder to file. One of them has started rereading all exchanges with you at night, looking for the moment they misjudged the word, and has begun carefully, casually asking mutual people about you, which is what a cartographer looks like when he's trying to commission a new survey without admitting the old map failed. Their meetings about you have gotten more frequent and less confident, and beneath all of it runs the one current none of them will say at the table. If that person is territory, then what have we been drawing all these years? You don't need to answer that for them. You don't need to attend your own vindication. Ink fades, coastlines don't. Time is on the side of whatever is actually there. And you, my friend, are actually there. And there is a slower ruin coming for the guilt that none of them has fully priced in yet. Maps get corrected. Always. Not by arguments, by traffic. Once enough ships have sailed your waters and come home intact, the old chart doesn't get debated in some grand public reckoning. It just quietly stops being consulted. It gets rolled up, shelved, referenced only as a curiosity. Look, how wrong we used to be about that region. That is the specific afterlife waiting for every person who spent these years drawing monsters over you. Not to be defeated, but to be outdated. To watch the world road itself toward the very coordinates they warned against. And to realize that their lives' work has become the before picture. Some of them will adapt. They pull out fresh volume and start drawing you accurately, like late without apology, hoping no one remembers the serpents. Let them. A corrected map is still your survey wearing their signature. Even their revision is a monument to you. Meanwhile, and this is my favorite part of your whole story, look at what you were doing while they were holding emergency session of the guild. You kept speaking, breathed seconds, guessed, apologized for. You kept speaking, and every sentence was another sounding of your own depths. You stopped performing, smallness in a few rooms, and noticed, to your own surprise, that you didn't drown and neither did anyone else. You learned the difference between cruelty and clarity. That took real work. And you did it quietly, which is the only way that work can be done. You made peace with being paraphrased badly behind your back because you finally understood that a bad copy of a true map is still downstream of your survey. You started as saying, I think, without the customs declaration in front of it. Some days you even said, I know, and here was the growth nobody applauded because nobody saw it. You stopped waiting for the guild seal. There was a version of you years ago that wanted nothing more than to be drawn onto their chart in a flattering position. A nice little named harbor, safely inside their borders. That version of you is gone. You outgrew the desire to be included in a drawing smaller than yourself. That is the least visible and most irreversible kind of growth there is. Which brings us here to the title, the one I promised you, the one they issued by accident in a room with the door shut, and the one I'm now going to hand you properly in the open with the door wide. They looked at everything you are, the voice, the outrage, the coastlines you put through their oceans, and the most honest thing their fear could produce was a monster in the margin. So take it exact as they drew it. You're the dragon they drew, not the villager, not the sailor, not the little named harbor inside somebody's borders. The dragon, the figure that gill things onto territory it cannot govern. The shape they used to warn each other, the only thing on the entire map drawn from imagination, and fear instead of measurement, because measurement failed. Do you understand what an admission that is? Everything else on their chart, base or weight, you they had to utilize. mythologize. You are the one region of the world where their instruments came back blank and their nerve came back shaking. And rather than write, we don't know, they wrote beware. Centuries of frightened experts and their response to the unmeasurable has never once changed. They don't deny the dragon exists. They just advise everyone to sail around it, and they will keep advising that. Let them. Because of the age of guilt always ends the same way. Eventually, someone sails past the warning into the water marked with monsters and comes back rich. And then another. And then the harbor can't hold all the ships headed your way toward the exact coordinates the old charts set to avoid. The people meant for you were never going to be deterred by a drawing. The warning label they put on you is currently functioning as your lighthouse. It is selecting for the brave. Every person worth having in your life from this day forward will have gotten to you the same way by ignoring the guilt. So come back with me now to the beginning. To that room you were never invited into, that bit of silence after your words landed, and that one sentence finally said out loud, this person is dangerous. You walked into this video thinking that room was where you were rejected. Now you know what it actually was. That room was a chart room. That silence was the sounds of instruments failing. And that sentence was a guild of nervous mop makers standing over the edge of everything they understand, reaching for the monster's pen with your name in their mouths. They did not diminish you in that room. They documented you. It is the only honest thing they have ever drawn. So here's the only instruction I have for you. And it is not be careful because you have been careful for years and it nearly erases you. Say the next true thing. Say it without the apology stapled to the front. Say it at full accuracy. Somewhere a guild is watching the horizon of you with their hands tied on an old map, and the tide as is has always been is on the side of what's real. Say the next real thing. Dragons don't ask the map makers for the permission to exist. Keep being the reason the map has to change.